the falling of oil prices has given so much of allure that the excise has been hiked significantly, and because of which some of the again levies has been coming in to spend wherever possible. Now again imagine if that luck factor would not have been there, how would this have been possible? So yes, it was a very good intent document, a very good vision statement, a very good roadmap. But I would think this was just one more uh, expression of intent which we have been seeing for the last now how much 10, 11 months of government, 9, 10 months. So it is nothing out of blue, and it is just a extension or a continuity of whatever the government has been talking about. Just to sum up, maybe to be taking the risk of being politically wrong here, Mr. Modi is the marketeer in the country today. I am very politically neutral guy, so I am not inclined to any party. So he has created the aura and the marketing blitzkrieg which is required for success of any product. The product now needs to come. So everything boils down to how it is implemented, and that is the key which will decide the fate of the country in the next 3 to 4 years. Yes, he has been successfully shown the intent and the execution in as his stint in Gujarat. It needs to be recreated as far as the country is concerned. There are various challenges. It's not going to be as easy a cakewalk as it was in the Gujarat, because it was just a state. There are a lot more challenges, a lot more policy which are centrally driven, a lot many policy which are state driven. So the state driven policy, once you are a state chief minister, you have all the say. But when you are a prime minister and the state chief ministers have the say and the other states have contradictory views to yours, that is where the challenge comes in. So he has tried to address that by getting into constructive federalism, by providing more devolution, trying to bring the states on board, and that is the only way the GST can be passed, so on and so forth. So this is, so in nutshell, I would say, very good in intent, good amount of luck, which has led to presenting the financials in the manner that they look. Obviously, there is some creative accounting which gives some optical illusion to the numbers which have been communicated, but execution will be the key.
Thank you, sir. So since we are on macroeconomic topics, so what we have seen is that Europe is recovering. So Japan is also trying to recover. It's in deflation. China, sir, is experiencing slowdown. So what we have seen is that most of these countries have gone for devaluation of their currency through quantitative easing one way or the other. So how is it going to impact the Make in India campaign? Or like how is it going to impact the Indian exports because of the currency devaluation? Like what, and how can we counter that, sir?
See, exports were there when currency was 40, 45, 50, 55, now 60, right? So currency alone does not determine what should we export. The export basket needs to be first of all relevant to the world, what India is offering, right? That's number. It has to be unique and it has to be a price competitive. So what we say is a Make in India. So what we need to do in Make in India, we need to have roads, we need to have logistics, rails and road. We need to have a power to the industry, right? We need to have employment for the people in the sense that giving fillip to the MSME sector, right? So all these ingredients, these are the ingredients. So even if rupee fluctuates within a range where we are currently compared to other guys, if we are into a mass production, low-tech mass production, if India is a low-tech mass production, currency will affect us. If we are in a high-tech production or a unique production, let's say aerospace, defense, something we can export, which is a unique, kind of, and what we call it our demographic dividend. If we can leverage that, then kind of currency. So there is answer to both the sides, kind of saying that if it is a unique and competing, which is a low-tech mass production, currency will help you. But if you have something high-tech, unique proposition, so then it will know. So for example, just to give example, last time we were, last about 10 days back, we were in Istanbul and Finance Forum was trying to reach me and they were not able to reach me, my tickets, etc. But what we saw in Turkey is 7 crore population country, right? But half the GDP of India. exactly it is about to reach about $1 trillion economy. But they identified the unique, and what is unique? They have a heritage, the Byzantine era, what we say, the Byzantine legacy, the Ottoman legacy. They converted into a cultural. Now it is officially called cultural from 2013, cultural capital of Europe, Istanbul city, which Istanbul divides Asia, and it's a river, which is a Bosphorus river, and it divides. The one side of the river is Europe, and another side is Asia. So this beautiful landscape, and in spite of being a Muslim country, it's the only Muslim republic country. The way they have leveraged their tourism, today 65% of their GDP comes from services, basically, and mainly from tourism. So what I mean to say that there you don't see a currency devaluation into services. So they have a unique proposition. So India need to identify such unique proposition which they can offer to the world. And I think exports will be taken care. So, a classical example is IT. What we have IT about what now coming to an $80 trillion IT exports, yeah, and we all Indian import gold worth $83 trillion. So that's.
So there is also that we are speaking.
So not the 80 billion, sorry.
So yeah, I mean, I agree with Dhaval to a large extent, where a lot of emphasis and importance is given on currency whenever we talk about exports. Now, the IT industry came into vogue early 90s. I think Infosys IPO was around 93, 94. And since then, we have been seeing a lot of traction continuing into the IT industry per se. Now, 93, 94, what would have been the currency? I don't remember exactly, but should have been sub 40. I don't have the exact number offhand. But at least we have seen 50% kind of a depreciation. So the flip side of the argument, or the on the favorable side, one can say that it was aided because of the currency depreciation, and that has favored the IT exports. But there are enough examples where if you have niche kind of offering, there is hardly currency which can impact your competitiveness. So the product quality and the productivity will be the major facet in terms of creating your competitiveness and the quantum of exports that one does. Now, as far as Make in India is concerned, it is to some extent about increasing the exports, and largely it is also about import substitution for the categories which we are capable of producing. Because so much of policy decisions and policy changes are required. For example, a very basic example of labor reforms, which now the government is trying to make the states compete with each other, which I think will go a longer way and make a faster policy changes which can bring out the required change in regulations to make this happen, the Make in India. So it will require not only change in policy, change in mindset, but a lot of infrastructural development would need to take place. And as I said, a vision document or intent is created, which is the beginning of any development. But slowly, you need to cater to the action points to realize that vision. So a vision has been established. Policies are being made to realize that vision. There would be requirement of significant changes of some of the policies and regulations. And then you would need to execute the same as well. So a lot of railway infrastructure, a lot of logistics, a lot of road infrastructure will need to be created to make this a really successful venture. Just like to share one example here. Now, typically, any manufacturing, the turnaround cycle in India is so high because of the very poor infrastructure of taking the product to the port. So one of the examples which I had heard about 4 to 5 years back, And textile is one of the very key export-oriented economy, I mean, products which India, from a quality perspective, definitely is can compete with the best of the world, or maybe have a superior product range. But still, we have very, very minuscule market share as compared to China, or even I think Vietnam and all those countries are also ahead of us. One of the examples that I had come across 4 to 5 years back was, so there was a shipload of denim jeans being ordered to China. Now, what they did was they created a whole workshop in the ship itself. So the moment they got the order, they loaded the raw material, and then the ship was on its way to the US, and by the time it reached the US port, all the stuff was ready. So, I mean, the kind of the thinking, the innovation, and the kind of infrastructure which needs to make this happen is more important rather than just the currency.
So I have now the honor of being the last, but I'm not going to differ much. So I have a slightly different view. See, Make in India is more of a intent, a statement of intent. Just by saying Make in India, nothing is going to change. Also, I think the currency devaluation will have no bearing, because as long as we stay relevant, we will continue to export, as Dhaval rightly said. My view is slightly different on this, in the sense it's been about we had about 20 years since the first reforms came in, and we've seen the large IT companies coming out of India. We haven't yet seen an Apple or a Google born in India or operate here. So Make in India, yes, to some extent it is needed, but what's more important is to bring in that innovation and that value add. So we, in terms of value, we do a lot of things. For example, in terms of textile garments, there is a huge industry sitting in Tirupur, from where we supply to practically all the brands. But we basically, what we do is the outsourcing, where we don't really get the margin. Or let's say diamond. Diamond, we have the largest by the volumes, but there's not a single brand coming out of India, like let's say Tiffany or Cartier or anybody else. So Make in India, if we look at it, I mean, only from a perspective of competing with China, I think it's a wrong model to my mind, because India and China to some extent are different. China is a completely export-led story. We are a consumption story. But what we also need to focus on, apart from trying to get industries to make in India, is to add that edge where we can move up the value chain. Unfortunately, in none of the sectors which are fueling the growth are we seeing the country moving up the value chain. So it's important to have the infrastructure. It's important to set up the roads. It's also important to have the intent, but there also has to be an effort to up the game, so that we move to the next level. That's my take on Make in India.
So since we are talking about infrastructure spending, and the infrastructure being very important in an economy, so what we've also seen that where the land is coming from. So the land acquisition bill ordinance is stuck in the parliament. So if it's not passed through, or if the government has to dilute the land acquisition bill ordinance, so how will it impact the infrastructure development and hence the overall economy? Because then we are stuck with an overloaded infrastructure which is not able to help and is not able to provide us for our needs.
So it's an interesting take, because you always have to balance between the economic agenda and the social agenda. So it's very easy for us to say that we need land reforms so that land acquisition becomes simple, but we also have to go and see the state of those people whose land is taken away, or an alternate land, piece of alternate land is given. Generally, you are taking away the livelihood from a person whose land you are taking, and giving him land at a place where it's like somebody coming and asking you to move from the house you're living right now to some other place where there is no setup. So land acquisition, dilution, or in the current form, see, it's a step in the right move, but it has to strike a balance between the the economic agenda as well as the social agenda. So you cannot, just because we want economic growth, we cannot overlook the social aspect of the growth. We will need to balance, and to that extent, if without a political agenda, if it needs to be diluted a bit, so be it, because over a period of time when the economic growth will reach the people, you will see the readiness to move also. But we can't just say that since we have a one-point agenda, economic growth, we will put everything aside and only pursue that. That, to my mind, may be an incorrect way of growth.
Who are we trying to benefit by the economic agenda or the development of economy? The population of the country, right? So, as Tushar rightly pointed out, it has to be a very, very balanced approach. We can't just have one section of society benefit out of it at the expense of another section of society. So it has to be a wholesome and a holistic approach which needs to be taken here. Of course, to some extent you can also term it as a necessarily evil, because if the acquisition laws are too stringent, then everything gets suffocated, and if they are too liberal, then there could be negative repercussions of the same in terms of disparity of the benefits of the act. So to be seen in the light of where it is very, very necessary, the people need to be made to understand, and from that perspective there has to be a common debate, a common forum for the land owners and the land acquirers to reach a solution where it is in the interest of all the parties. Unless that kind of approach is taken, it will only create more and more disparity rather than solve any issues, and there could be a lot of social unrest as a result as well. Because one very good example that Tushar just pointed out was, when you are the owner of a land, you are more concerned about your issues rather than what the country needs. So you can have a bird's eye view of how you want the country to go, and this is the broader economic agenda, but at your individual level it's not beneficial for you to take away your livelihood, to move you from the land from or where you must have been staying there for your number of generations for 200, 300, 400 years. It's more of a sentimental, emotional and a connect and a cultural issue rather than just about giving the land for a handsome amount or a premium to the market rate and giving some land somewhere else. So it's more a cultural, emotional and a connect issue rather than just an economic issue. So the balance definitely needs to be brought in to make it more worthwhile and more viable in its essence.
Yeah, this time I'm last. So I have nothing much to add. I just want to say that, see, if Modi government understand, or Modi himself understand, if Make in India were to happen, there needs to be a land. Land has to be made available to the industry, to the manufacturing guys. Unfortunately, the challenge which comes is that land is a state subject and not a center subject. However, whatever policy center wants to say, but it will have to be guided by or abide by the state subject. So therefore, and that's the attempt. If you look at the attempt is being made to share revenues, higher revenues. Why? So that this economic policy reforms, be it way of labor reform, be it way of land reforms or GST, where all the states needs to agree and all states have their own respective kind of overarching legislation. So that's the only reason why it's a step in the right direction, and these are the 3 or 4 agendas where he will need cooperative federalism or active help of the states, and therefore the higher sharing of the revenue. So intention is there. They are taking steps. So one step is center. Now state has to respond to that. Let's see how it goes. Yeah.
So in the budget document, government talks about that Indian equities are the second best performing equities in the world. So given the incremental changes in the budget, do you think that this performance will continue, or we will see consolidation in the markets?
Well, Indian equity has been the second best performing market, has nothing to do with the budget that has been presented. So it is the past, right? So it is just a factual information to get brownie points is what the statement has been made, nothing more. The market has performed since the time the new government came, or even before the new government came, on anticipation of this government coming into power, right? Now, the equity markets typically behaves more sentimentally in the short term rather than on fundamentals, because numbers will always come later on. It's the sentiment change which drives the PE re-rating to start with. So from a fundamental standpoint, if you see, there has been no change in terms of fundamentals of any sector or any company whatsoever. The earning numbers still remain the same. The results this quarter have also been quite disappointing, but the markets are close to up by 40-50% at the index level. At the stock level, there are stocks which are up more than 7 times to 10 times. So the change that has happened was, again, that the companies were trading at liquidation kind of valuations, so there was extreme pessimism. With the change in government, the sentiment changed and sanity restored, so a lot of rally in the stocks happened because of valuation correction. So the earlier valuation were also not right. So there was a correction because some sanity is there, so people have got the confidence that now there is a strong government in place. So something will be done. And given the background Mr. Modi had of his Gujarat development, obviously the expectation was pretty high. Now the equity market from a valuation point is very, very pendulum kind of approach, but at a longer time frames. So you start with extreme low valuation, you need a equilibrium level, but it never stays at equilibrium. So it again moves to the other extreme. So from a valuation standpoint, if you see, it is very difficult to justify most of the sectors or the companies or the stocks that are currently traded. But given that the equity market discounts the future rather than the present, so all these announcements, all these intents, if even gradually they are executed, then obviously we are into a multi-year kind of a bull phase. So any correction will be bought into. So it's not about whether the valuation are expensive at this point of time, whether this budget was suitable for further rally in the capital markets or not, because this, if you just notice on the budget day, the markets were trading close to 1.5% up, and by the end of the day it was exactly the same number, but the sign was different, right? So from 250 points in the Sensex, if I recollect right, in green, it ended up close to 250 points in red. And that too, where there was a lot of skeletals in the fine print. Because this budget was one of the few budgets where a lot of information was never spoken in the budget speech, but everything was in the fine print. So after going through the fine print, when there were a lot of things which was not very conducive for the market, still the next day the market started with a upward swing. So I think there was no particular announcement in the budget that has led to this rally, but the reiteration of the intent and the confidence that the market has that the execution will be made, even if it has not been done till date, that is keeping the levels to where they are. And the second aspect is, globally there is very dearth of opportunity. Now apart from US, there is hardly any place that the money can go. And money chases momentum and money chases performance. So Europe, there is hardly anything to invest into. Japan, despite, countless of measures and policies, still the growth and inflation both are very, very difficult to come by. The American growth also comes along with a hanging sword. If the growth is very good, things stabilize very fast, then there is a hanging sword of rate hike. China is again saddled with slowdown compared to what it was used to witness earlier. So India in that sense also is in a very, is a oasis in a desert sort of a situation currently. So money will keep flowing, and hence the market will keep performing. It may be range bound to in certain windows of time, but any correction will be bought into because there's a lot of money that is waiting outside, number one. Secondly, a very, very strong intent declaration again from the government from in this budget was to encourage the domestic savings and channelize them into financial instruments. Now, India is a very, very gold saving kind of a mindset. So